The scream shattered the silence, sharp and piercing, as if it came from within Rachel's own chest. She stumbled in her darkened living room, clutching the frame of the strange painting she had bought earlier that day. Her breath trembled, each gasp pulled tight with panic. The old canvas, depicting a shadowy corridor, seemed to shimmer under the dim lamplight. Rachel said, "Why does it feel like you were watching me?" Her voice cracked, brittle and uncertain. The air around her grew dense, pressing against her ribs. A whisper slithered through the shadows, too soft to make sense of, yet heavy enough to raise the hairs along her arms. Rachel froze, her pulse hammering. The house groaned, wood tightening like it resented her presence. The painting's corridor deepened, shadows stretching farther back, drawing her gaze into its void. Rachel whispered, "This isn't real. It can't be." Still, her heart knew the truth. Something inside the frame had already crossed into her world. The house settled into silence, yet Rachel's pulse refused to slow. She set the painting against the wall, though every nerve screamed at her to throw it out. The lamp buzzed faintly, a weak companion to her growing dread. She whispered, "It's just an old painting, nothing more." The words tasted false, brittle on her tongue. Her shadow bent strangely across the wall, longer than her frame. The living room felt smaller now, as though the air pressed her inward. She wrapped her arms around herself, desperate for warmth. But the painting seemed to drink the light, its corridor swallowing the glow. Rachel said, "Don't lose control." A floorboard creaked upstairs, sharp as a warning. The sound slashed her fragile comfort, and she froze. Alone, or so she thought, the house had awakened with her fear. Rachel forced herself toward the kitchen, each step echoing louder than it should. She reached for the switch, but the bulb fizzled out with a sharp pop. Darkness spilled into the hallway, thick and smothering. She whispered, "Stay calm." The refrigerator hummed faintly, yet it felt sinister, as though mocking her. The tile under her bare feet was cold, sending shivers through her spine. Rachel rubbed her arms, searching for warmth, for stability. Then she noticed it. The painting's corridor had shifted again, though she hadn't touched it. She gasped, her throat dry, and stumbled backward. The kitchen doorway yawned like the painting itself, shadows curving unnaturally. Her body trembled with the certainty that the house was no longer hers. Rachel leaned against the counter, nails biting into her palms. Her breath rattled shallow, desperate. She whispered, "You're not real, you're just paint and canvas." Yet the corridor within the frame pulsed, stretching into infinite black. The lamp in the living room flickered violently, then steadied, as though in rhythm with her heartbeat. Rachel pressed her eyes shut, but whispers slid past her ears, a chorus of voices without words. She cried out, "Stop it!" Her voice cracked, falling flat into the empty house. When she opened her eyes, the reflection on the window no longer matched her movements. It lingered, staring back with her own terrified face, but frozen, trapped, and smiling. The reflection's smile widened, though Rachel's lips remained still. She staggered back, hitting the counter hard, pain rippling through her side. Her voice faltered, "This isn't happening." The painting loomed in the corner, its shadows reaching out like hands. She felt her chest tighten, air thinning as though the house itself had sealed shut. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs locked. The reflection in the window tilted its head slowly, eyes unblinking, grin unnatural. Rachel choked back a sob, pressing her palms against her ears. Yet the whispers grew louder, swirling through the house, a chant without language. The air vibrated, the floor creaked, and Rachel realized the painting had chosen her. Rachel sat on the couch, knees pulled close, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. The painting leaned against the wall like an uninvited guest, its shadows stretching farther than the frame. She whispered, "I should never have bought you." Her eyes burned, exhaustion battling fear. Memories pressed in, her father's voice, cold and distant, warning her of obsessions that consume the soul. She shivered, remembering nights filled with nightmares she could never explain. The room seemed smaller now, air heavy, ceiling pressing downward. Rachel rubbed her temples, whispering, "I can't lose control again." The phrase echoed like a mantra. Yet as her eyes slid toward the painting, its corridor appeared endless, swallowing the faint glow of the lamp. A chill gripped her spine. The truth she refused to admit was clawing its way into her heart. She was no longer safe in her own home. The night stretched endlessly, each minute crawling slower than the last. Rachel dragged herself to the kitchen, her steps heavy as though the floor resisted. She opened the fridge, its harsh light spilling over her pale face. The hum vibrated through the walls, louder than it should. She said, "I just need something normal, anything." But nothing felt normal. The milk carton slipped from her shaking hands, splattering white across the tiles like paint strokes. She gasped, bending to clean, and her eyes caught movement. The painting's reflection stared from the steel fridge door, even though it remained in the living room. Its corridor yawned wide, swallowing light that wasn't there. Rachel staggered back, hands trembling. Her voice cracked. "You followed me." The air grew colder, her breath visible in the glow. The house was alive, each shadow bending closer, feeding on her fear. Rachel collapsed at the table, her head buried in her hands. A faint ticking filled the silence, though no clock hung in the room. She muttered, "You're breaking me down." The words carried the weight of confession, like a truth long denied. She lifted her face, eyes rimmed red, staring at the wall where the painting rested. The corridor inside was no longer still. She swore shadows shifted in its depth. Her pulse thudded painfully. She remembered therapy sessions, doctors insisting her visions were trauma echoes, not real. But this was real. Too real. Rachel whispered, "I can't tell anyone. They'll never believe me." Tears slipped down her cheeks, hot against her cold skin. She pressed her fists into the table, wood creaking under her weight. The painting pulsed in her periphery, demanding her gaze, hungry for her breaking point. Her phone buzzed suddenly, vibrating across the table. Rachel snatched it, desperate for connection, desperate for proof she wasn't lost. The screen lit her pale face, the glow reflecting in wide, bloodshot eyes. A message blinked from her friend. "Thomas? Are you okay? Haven't heard from you." Relief surged, then drained instantly when her reflection on the screen smiled, though her own lips did not. She dropped the phone, heart hammering. It clattered loudly, the sound echoing unnaturally long. Rachel whispered, "No, no, this isn't me." She crouched, picking up the phone, and for a split second the corridor of the painting filled the background of her reflection. She staggered, panic twisting inside. The phone's screen flickered, and the device shut off. Darkness pressed closer, whispering secrets only she could hear. Rachel stumbled to the hallway mirror, gripping the frame like a lifeline. She stared at her reflection, breath fogging the glass. At first it matched, trembling and wide-eyed. Then its head tilted slowly, unnaturally sharp. Her body stiffened. "No, not you too," she whispered. The reflection's mouth curled into the same smile she had seen before. Rachel slammed her fists against the mirror, shouting, "Stop!" The house answered with a groan, floorboards bending as though something shifted beneath. The reflection blinked once, though her own eyes remained wide open. Rachel staggered back, chest tight, panic rising. Her body trembled with the weight of realization. Every surface now belonged to the painting's influence. There was no escape. Her whispered plea filled the silence. "Please, leave me alone." But the reflection only smiled wider, claiming her despair. Rachel woke to the sound of whispers, not from her dreams, but woven into the silence of her bedroom. She sat up, sweat dampening her hair, her pulse hammering in her throat. The painting leaned against the opposite wall, though she had left it downstairs. Her voice cracked. How did you get here?" She slid from the bed, her bare feet meeting the cold wooden floor. The corridor inside the frame breathed, shadows shifting like living smoke. Rachel's throat tightened as the air grew icy. She thought of her mother, who once told her nightmares run in the blood, curses no one escapes. Rachel whispered, "You're not part of me." The painting answered with silence, yet the pressure in her chest deepened. The room warped with each heartbeat, and dread curled around her ribs like chains. Rachel dragged the painting into the hall, her arms shaking from effort. It scraped the floor, groaning like something alive. She muttered, "You don't belong here." Her voice a broken whisper. She pushed it against the front door, intent on throwing it out. Yet when she opened the door, the night outside was blacker than natural, a void without stars or streetlights. Her breath caught, fogging in the unnatural chill. She whispered, "There's nothing out there." The painting's frame vibrated faintly under her fingers, like a heartbeat. Panic tightened her chest. She slammed the door shut, dropping to her knees. Her tears fell onto the wood, vanishing into the grain as though the house drank them. Rachel pressed her forehead against the door, trembling, her body crumpling under the weight of isolation. Rachel staggered to the living room, desperate for escape from her own mind. She turned on the television, but the screen flickered with static, then showed the corridor from the painting. Her breath hitched. The corridor stretched endlessly, camera-like, pulling her gaze forward. Rachel shouted, "Stop it!" and slammed the power button, but the screen stayed alive. She saw a silhouette at the end of the corridor, tall, featureless, watching. Her body froze, lungs locked. The whispers returned, louder now, swirling from the screen and the painting both. She clutched her head, nails digging into her scalp. Her sob cracked the silence. "Why are you doing this to me?" The figure twitched closer on the screen, stuttering movement like broken film. Rachel hurled the remote across the room, but the image did not fade. Rachel crawled toward the phone, desperate for another voice. She dialed Thomas, her hands shaking so violently she nearly dropped it. When his voice answered, calm and steady, tears spilled down her cheeks. She said, "Please, I'm losing it. The painting, it moves. It follows me." Silence crackled on the line, then his tone sharpened. "Rachel, stop this. You need help, not ghosts." His disbelief stabbed deeper than the whispers. She sobbed, "You think I'm crazy?" His sigh echoed cold through the receiver. "You're scaring yourself." The line cut, replaced by static whispers. Rachel hurled the phone away, its crash lost under her choking sobs. She curled against the wall, trembling. The betrayal burned, her last thread of hope unraveling in the dark. Rachel forced herself to the basement, convinced she could hide the painting away. She dragged it down the narrow stairs, wood groaning under its weight. The bulb above flickered weakly, barely cutting the darkness below. She muttered, "You'll stay here." Her voice trembled, more hope than command. She shoved it against the far wall, dust rising in the damp air. But when she turned back to climb the stairs, the bulb blew out with a sharp pop. Darkness consumed her. Rachel froze, clutching the railing. The whispers filled the black, now layered with laughter. She spun, heart racing, and in the dark she felt warmth against her face, like breath not her own. Her scream cut through the silence, swallowed instantly by the shadows. Rachel stumbled into the living room, her chest burning with every breath. She thought she had left the painting locked in the basement, yet here it stood, propped neatly against the wall as if waiting. She whispered, "No, I put you away." Her knees weakened, nearly buckling under the weight of dread. The corridor inside the frame pulsed like a vein, shadows folding inward endlessly. A faint shape emerged at the far end. Human, but distorted, featureless. Rachel pressed her hands to her face, shaking her head. Her mind fought to reject the sight, but her body trembled with recognition. "You're alive," she whispered, the words brittle and fragile. The silence that followed was louder than any scream, pressing into her skull like knives. She crawled closer, pulled against her will. Her breath quickened, every inhale shallow, desperate. The painting's corridor warped, its perspective twisting as if it wanted her inside. The faint figure shifted, stepping forward, though its form remained blurred. Rachel whispered, "Who are you?" Her voice cracked, her throat raw. The air thickened, a copper tang flooding her tongue. She touched the frame, wood icy cold, and instantly flinched. Her fingertips burned, as if scorched by frost. A low hum vibrated from the canvas, deep and resonant, rattling her chest. She gasped, pulling her hand away, but her reflection in the glass didn't follow. It lingered, still staring, lips curled into a faint grin. Rachel's scream tore from her throat, shattering the heavy silence. Rachel collapsed backward, clutching her burned hand. The corridor within the painting stretched further, swallowing the lamplight. She gasped, "You're feeding on me." A realization sharpened like glass in her chest. The painting thrived on her fear. The distorted figure stepped closer, its outline trembling like smoke. Whispers swelled, louder, layered, voices both male and female. Rachel pressed her palms to her ears, sobbing, "Please stop." But the sound only grew, a chant without words, filling every crack of the house. Shadows thickened along the walls, climbing like vines. Rachel scrambled to her feet, heart racing. The painting's figure was no longer distant. It stood just at the threshold of the corridor, waiting. Its presence consumed the room, heavy, unrelenting. Desperate, Rachel grabbed the painting and hurled it onto the floor. The crash echoed like thunder, glass splintering across the room. She shouted, "Get out of my house!" Her voice cracked under the weight of panic. The shadows recoiled for an instant, then surged outward, stronger, spilling across the floor like liquid night. Rachel stumbled back, barefoot, cutting on broken glass. Pain sharpened her panic, but she refused to look away. The corridor within the broken canvas writhed, still alive, still stretching. The figure stepped fully into view, tall, faceless, its body dripping shadows like tar. Rachel's scream rattled the windows, though no neighbors stirred. The house was sealed, her prison, her nightmare. Rachel pressed against the wall, chest heaving, vision blurred with tears. The figure towered over the broken painting, its faceless head turning slowly toward her. Shadows writhed around its body, stretching toward her like reaching arms. Her voice cracked into a plea. "What do you want from me?" The whispers hushed instantly, the silence heavier than sound. Then one word emerged, clear, guttural, resonant in her bones. "Soul." Rachel's body trembled violently, her heart clawing against her ribs. Her vision spun as the room darkened. She whispered back, "You can't have it," though her voice shook with despair. The gear tilted its head, a silent mockery of her defiance. The painting pulsed once more, a heartbeat that wasn't hers, as the room filled with choking shadows. Rachel collapsed onto the couch, body trembling, when the phone buzzed again. She grabbed it with desperate hope, seeing Thomas's name. She whispered, "Please, answer me this time." His voice came through, calm but sharper now. "Rachel, you've always been like this, obsessed with shadows, with things no one else can see." Her stomach dropped, panic mixing with confusion. "What are you saying?" she asked, her throat raw. His laugh echoed, cold and unfamiliar. "Don't you get it? I gave it to you. That painting was meant for you." Rachel's breath caught, body going cold. "No, you knew!" she cried. The line crackled with static, then silence. The betrayal sank like a knife. The only person she trusted had tied her to the curse. Rachel dropped the phone, heart pounding as truth sharpened into horror. She remembered the yard sale, Thomas's casual suggestion to check it out, his strange smile when she picked the painting. Her voice shook. "You wanted this for me." The realization twisted inside her, betrayal burning hotter than fear. The painting pulsed on the floor, glass shards shimmering faintly like eyes. Rachel staggered forward, demanding, "Why me? Why now?" Silence pressed harder, whispers slipping beneath her words. Her body trembled as if unseen hands gripped her bones. Tears blurred her vision. She whispered again, "You knew all along." The corridor's figure shifted closer, the shadows now filling half the room. The betrayal was complete. She was never a victim by chance. She was chosen. Her body shook violently as the whispers rose into words. Chosen. Bound. Due. Yours forever. Rachel clutched her head, screaming, "No, I won't be yours." She staggered into the hallway mirror, her reflection waiting, smiling, lips moving before hers. It whispered, "You've always belonged here." Rachel's knees buckled, her palms flat against the cold glass. She cried, "That's not me." But the reflection tilted its head, laughter spilling from its mouth, though hers stayed silent. She recoiled, hitting the wall. Fear cracked into rage. She shouted, "I'll destroy you." Yet even as she said it, she knew the truth. Destroying the painting might destroy her. The curse was tangled in her blood, her past, her very soul. Rachel stumbled back into the living room, glass crunching beneath her feet. The figure in the painting's corridor had stepped entirely out, towering, faceless, dripping shadows like black tar. Rachel's breath caught, chest tight, body frozen. "You're not real," she whispered, but the denial rang hollow. The entity loomed, its presence crushing, suffocating. Then she heard Thomas's voice again, not from the phone, but from the figure itself. "I opened the door. You walked through it." Rachel screamed, "You betrayed me." Her voice tore raw, echoing through the house. The figure tilted its head, silence more damning than words. Rachel's heart cracked. She wasn't just cursed by chance. She had been delivered into the darkness by someone she trusted. Rachel's strength faltered as the shadow figure stepped closer, each stride bending the room's walls inward. She pressed against the corner, shaking, tears streaking her cheeks. Her whisper broke. "Thomas, why?" The figure's voice answered, a chilling blend of Thomas and the whispers, "Because you were always meant to carry it." Her breath seized, despair swallowing what little hope remained. She clutched the broken glass beside her, hand bleeding, whispering, "I won't let you win." Her body trembled, but fire sparked in her eyes. The figure loomed, stretching shadows toward her, and the corridor pulsed with hunger. Rachel screamed, both defiant and terrified. The house quaked, floorboards splitting, as the curse tightened its hold. Rachel gripped the shard of glass tighter, her hand bleeding freely, crimson dripping across the floorboards. The figure loomed closer, its faceless head tilting, a silent predator savoring her fear. Shadows curled upward, clutching her ankles, holding her in place. Rachel shouted, "I won't let you take me." Her voice cracked, but fire burned through her tears. The corridor and the broken painting throbbed with dark light, a living wound spilling its curse. She felt her strength waning, the air thick with whispers clawing at her mind. Yet she raised the shard higher, her knuckles white, ready to fight against the impossible. The entity leaned forward, its voice rumbling through her bones. "You are mine already." The walls quaked as the house itself groaned, cracks splitting across the plaster. Rachel stumbled, clutching her side, while the painting pulsed like a beating heart on the floor. The figure extended one long arm of shadow, reaching toward her chest. Her breath caught, lungs constricted as though gripped by invisible hands. She gasped, "No, you can't have it." Pain surged through her body as her vision blurred. Her veins burned cold, spreading from her fingertips inward. She stabbed at the darkness with the shard, her scream raw and guttural. The blade tore through air, meeting resistance like flesh, and the shadow recoiled with a shriek that rattled the windows. Rachel fell back, her chest heaving, but a spark of hope flickered in her eyes. The entity staggered, its body rippling, shadows unraveling like smoke in the wind. Rachel pressed her back against the wall, gasping, her body trembling from pain and adrenaline. She whispered, "You can bleed," half to herself, half to the monster. But the corridor roared alive, swallowing the broken glass shards into its void. The figure's form thickened again, stronger, taller. Rachel's fleeting victory crumbled as whispers rose into a chorus of screams. She clutched her ears, blood trickling from her nose, eyes squeezed shut. The figure's voice thundered, "Your soul feeds me." Rachel forced her eyes open, defiant through the tears. She croaked, then choked on it. Her body shook violently, but she refused to look away. Rachel dragged herself to the fireplace, hands raw and shaking. She grabbed an iron poker, heavy and cold, her last weapon. Shadows writhed toward her, slithering across the floor. The figure loomed, reaching again, its faceless head lowering. Rachel raised the poker high, voice breaking into a scream, "I won't be your prisoner!" With every ounce of strength she swung, slamming the iron into the painting itself. The impact cracked the frame, splinters exploding outward. A blast of icy wind roared from the corridor, knocking her to the floor. The figure screamed, a guttural, otherworldly howl, its body splitting and collapsing in on itself. Rachel's ears rang, her chest heaving as the room shook violently. Smoke and dust filled the room, the air sharp with the stench of burning oil. Rachel crawled forward, coughing, her body aching. The painting lay shattered, its corridor flickering like a dying flame. She whispered, "It's over," though her voice carried no certainty. The figure was gone, its shadows scattered, but her reflection in the window smiled again. Rachel froze, breath halting in her throat. The whisper slithered through the silence, softer now but unbroken, forever. Her heart pounded, hope crumbling into dread. Tears welled as she pressed her forehead to the floor. She whispered, "I'll never escape, will I?" The silence answered with suffocating weight. The house remained dark, alive, waiting cowing. Rachel lay on the floor, her chest rising and falling in shallow bursts, her body trembling with exhaustion. The shattered remains of the painting glittered around her, shards catching faint light like broken stars. She whispered, "It's done, it has to be." Her words fell flat, devoured by the silence that followed. The house was still, too still, every creak and hum absent as if it held its breath. Rachel closed her eyes, but behind them the corridor still pulsed, burned into her mind like an afterimage. She pressed her bloodied hand to her chest, whispering, "I'm still me." Yet in the pit of her soul, she felt the truth clawing. Pieces of her had been claimed already, and they weren't coming back. Rachel forced herself to her feet, swaying as she stumbled toward the kitchen. Her reflection lingered in every surface, the window, the microwave door, even the sheen of spilled milk still staining the tiles. Each reflection stared a fraction too long, lips twitching into faint smiles before snapping back into her movements. Her breath trembled as she muttered, "You're not real. You're not me." But deep down she knew the reflections no longer belonged to her. She filled a glass of water, her hands shaking violently, and raised it to her lips. The water rippled, though she hadn't moved, as if unseen fingers stirred it. She froze, glass slipping from her hands, shattering as the sound echoed far too long. Rachel stumbled into the bathroom, gripping the sink tightly. She lifted her gaze to the mirror, desperate for proof of her own identity. Her reflection stared back. Tired, bruised, bloodied. But hers. Relief quivered in her chest. Then slowly, the reflection's lips parted into a grin she hadn't made. Rachel gasped, tears spilling down her face. She cried, "Stop it! Stop being me!" The reflection tilted its head, eyes hollow, smile widening into something monstrous. Rachel slammed her fists into the glass, cracks spiderwebbing outward. The reflection fractured, yet each shard continued to grin back at her. Dozens of her faces, all smiling, all wrong. Rachel's sobs filled the room, echoing off the walls like the sound of someone breaking apart. She collapsed to her knees, body shaking, unable to look at the shards anymore. The whispers returned, softer now, almost comforting. They coiled around her ears, murmuring promises of peace, of release. Rachel pressed her hands over her face, sobbing, "I can't fight you anymore." The room seemed to darken, the shadows stretching until they swallowed the edges of her world. In the blackness, she saw the corridor again, infinite, waiting, its door wide open. The faceless figure stood inside, patient and still, one hand reaching out. Rachel's body leaned forward without her consent, her knees dragging her closer to the darkness. "No, please," she whispered, but the plea was weak. Her will had cracked. The painting hadn't died. It had simply moved inside her. Rachel rose slowly, her face streaked with tears, her eyes hollow yet strangely calm. She walked back into the living room, her steps steady, almost mechanical. She looked at the shattered remains of the painting and whispered, "You're part of me now." The silence answered, suffocating, until a faint whisper echoed back, "Forever." Rachel's lips twitched into a small smile she did not intend. She froze, horrified as her body betrayed her. In the window's reflection, her mirrored self grinned fully, eyes glowing faintly. The lights flickered once, plunging the house into total blackness. In the silence that followed, only Rachel's whisper remained, trembling with despair. "It never ends."